I'm not entirely sure if the host will show up. I mean, I kind of feel like it's entirely possible they won't. If there is anything you want to talk about, that we can have a discussion between the two of us. If there isn't anything specific, then
No, I didn't really have anything in specific. This is one of the first ones that I'm attending in any case. So my main goal was to sort of try and see what the meeting was about and what sort of conversations were happening.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, so yeah, this one is largely about cluster API
Hmm.
and those who work on cluster API join these calls. We have a bit of a discussion. This EU time slot that didn't always get very busy, right?
Hmm.
We had more people on the US slot, but the US slot turns out to be in a slightly inconvenient time. Although, actually, no, I don't know about that one. The one that I do go to more often is the AWS one, the Cluster API AWS
Implementation.
call. Yeah. So there's the AWS provider specific call, and that is
Mm.
much more attended than this one, for instance. But yeah, and there's the Cluster API call, which is later today, which is at like 7 p.m. London time, I think. Oh no, 6 p.m. London time.
Okay.
Yeah. Where are you based, actually?
I am in London, in fact.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it should be this evening. Are you mostly interested in the AWS side of things then, or is it?
Somewhat. I'm actually working on. I've already started actually working on an implementation for EKS, right? So the project of mine is called EKS CTL. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
seen it. So yeah, we're planning to add cluster API support to that. Um, well, in the abstract sense, right?
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
it involves in practice, I don't know just yet because kind of yeah. I guess I don't know. Have you dived into cluster API at all?
I have a little bit, mostly from the API side of things, not as much in the implementation side of it. Like my main interest in cluster API started because we sort of have, I work for Pivotal that
Mhm.
does like cloud orchestration products, let's
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And we have something similar at the moment outside Kubernetes. We're trying to understand a little bit how the two sort of align, um,
Yeah.
just in terms of functionality offered. So while we haven't delved into implementation just yet, we're trying to see whether Cluster API might offer a more or less mature implementation for the just at the API level.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, so the idea is to, well, essentially kind of started off by, you know, it started as like initially there are a few people who had their own implementations where they had some kind of object that described their cluster, right?
Yep.
Usually that object looked like a typical Kubernetes object, but the way that those were um, well, kind of like the life cycles of those objects and where they lived or whatever wasn't, was very specific to each individual implementation.
Hmm.
And now with the cluster API working group, um, there is some convergence taking place, right? So I guess, yeah, there are a few examples out there where of the providers that existed before cluster API existed. And now they're kind of trying to converge, but it's happening at a very low end of it, and it's kind of complicated. And personally, I don't know. I have mixed opinions about how it is actually looking at the moment from
Mm.
a usability perspective. But essentially, the idea is that we define these APIs that have providers of their own. It's not part of Kubernetes project. We just sort of gather in these calls, and there's a common project where some of the useful bits leave, and in essence, people do slightly different things all the time. And there are a few providers that ended up in the Kubernetes organization, but that is not to say that they are complete or mature. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah. Uh,
Gotcha. Do you know of any, I guess, good documentation that would describe what the, because Cluster API is a sub-project of Lifecycle, is that right?
yeah, in a way, yeah, yeah, it is.
So is there like, I guess I could check out the charter for that.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's like a goal that the project is driving towards, an end, milestone to say?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think those are kind of vague at the moment, right? So it's like there's some stuff that is common, and then there's stuff that is uh, specific to any individual provider, right? So the people who work on providers, they have their own goals and milestones, and they're aiming towards complete implementation of some sort, and yeah, so it's kind of loose at the moment, so that there is enough freedom for people to kind of build their own things, and there's sort of like a I mean, I guess it's not the word lazy consensus doesn't describe it, but eventually, yeah, that's what we're kind of leading towards, right?
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's no sort of strong consensus in terms of where everybody's heading, so that people can work separately.
I see. And it sounds like there's like sub teams of people working on implementations. Is there the same kind of thing for the core, so to speak, of the API, or is it like somebody from AWS and somebody from Azure, for example, will work on Cluster API? How is it structured?
Yeah, so no, there's like all sorts of vendors doing all sorts of different things, right?
Right.
So the Cluster API AWS provider implementation is being done by Heptio and Red Hat, and Amazon are not part of that project as such. So Google has their own implementation of a GCP provider that is built by Google, but
Okay.
like, it depends on each of the providers, right?
Okay. And then who is mostly involved in the like the spec, so to speak? So the non-provider specific part.
So if you come to the call this
Yep.
afternoon, you'll meet those people there, right?
Oh, perfect. Is that
I mean,
the
they
one you
not
mentioned
necessarily
before?
they'll show up, but the call that is at 6 o'clock our time.
6ish. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll
let
check
me
that
just double
out.
check the calendar unless I'm confusing something, but I think so.
Oh, yep. I see that cluster API meeting.
Yeah, so that is like the main call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could ask more questions there, and
Yep.
yeah, people would be able to help there. Yeah, I mean, like the working group lead, as far as I'm aware, is Robert Bailey from Google.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Cool. I'll check out. I also need to catch up with the notes and I guess the recordings and things online as well. So I'll
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
try and catch up with these. Awesome. Cool.
Cool. Yeah. Well, good to meet you.
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you next time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye.